In short, I think that Italy is a much better country in terms of employee benefits. If you're an employee, you're going to have a much higher bargaining power and a much better position in Italy. Whereas if you want to start a company, if you want to be a manager, if you want to like create, the USA is going to give you a lot more opportunity to do that. My work experience goes back a little bit. I worked in the USA and I worked in Italy in the private sector. In the USA, my first official job was at as a camp counselor when I was 16. And then when I was 17, I got an internship through my high school to work at a bank. My first job that I found by myself without the help of my school and my grades and everything was actually at Burger King. And it was the same time and same summer that I was working at the bank. So I would wake up in the morning to go to work at the bank at 8, finish work at the bank at 4, and then at 5 I went to work at Burger King until 10, the whole summer before my senior year. That year I made around $6,000 for the summer, and that was after taxes. When school started, I decided to roll back on well, obviously I had to roll back on the time I was working at the bank, so I only worked at the bank on the weekends, and I worked at Burger King like 4 nights a week out of the week. And I continued this work schedule up until I found out that I got the scholarship for Bocconi, and I was just like, peace, don't need to work anymore. Then when I came to Italy, it was a little bit different. It was a lot harder to find like a regular job. Eventually I got a job at a private English school. Even though I was working for the English school never hired me. I wasn't an employee like I was in America. Like, I didn't sign a payment contract, and I didn't, they didn't pay my taxes for me. Like, when you work, the company has to pay a certain amount, take a certain amount of your paycheck out automatically to go towards taxes when you're a dependent worker. Well, with this English school, I wasn't a dependent worker. I was more like a freelance contractor, just some random person that not a random person, but somebody that they are not legally responsible for. You're responsible for paying all of your taxes. It was a really profitable position for them. So I worked at an English school, and this summer I did an internship at a fashion magazine. Didn't make any money off of that, free. That's pretty much how internships work in Italy, in Europe. You don't get paid. Also, me and a couple friends started a company last year in Milan. Basically what it was it was like Pizza Bow, but for alcohol. You could go online and order your own alcoholic beverages to get delivered to your house. Honestly, I was the marketing person, so I wasn't really involved in the day-to-day like negotiations, dealing with the commercialista, getting the license and all of that. But I saw my friends do it, and it was not easy. First of all, I left because I didn't have time to continue doing it, and I just wanted to have the experience and see how to start a company in Italy. I wasn't really tied to the project like my other friends were. So those are my work experiences. Education, banking, fast food, fashion. I was making way more in Italy. Because when I was working in America at Burger King, I was making minimum wage, which at the time was like $8.25, $8.50 an hour. And then at the bank, I was making $9 an hour. As much as I worked, I was working 40 hours a week at least. To make only $6,000 in 3 months working full-time is not good. Whereas in Italy, when I was working for the private English school, for example, I was making 17 euros an hour. 17 euros an hour. While I was definitely not working full-time, I was not working 40 hours a week. My student visa would have only allowed me to work 20 hours a week, but I did not have time to work even 20 hours a week because I was also studying. So I was working maybe, if I was lucky, 5 hours a week there. But if I wanted to, if I had the time, I could have worked full-time and I would have been making 17 euros an hour. And if I was making 17 euros an hour, 20 hours a week, you can do the math, it wasn't a bad job. In America, you're either paid weekly or bi-weekly or semi-monthly, like 2 times a month. Usually salaried workers, white-collar workers get paid twice a month or bi-weekly. When I was working at the bank, I was making $9 an hour, but I got paid every 2 weeks. When I was working at Burger King, on the other hand, you get weekly payments. So the more lower level blue-collar jobs get paid weekly. Now in Italy, from what I've seen, you get paid every month. Once a month, you get paid a monthly salary, which is not that convenient at all, because at least my Italian employers weren't very trustworthy, and there were times where they were late in paying me, and when they're late in paying you, what can you do? And it's like, I can't pay my rent late, and since you're waiting on that one payment, it really just messes things up. And plus, when you're a freelancer, apparently Italian law allows up to 60 days for payment, so you can end up waiting 2 months and not get paid. And actually, the school I was working at, that was their little policy. All the teachers were freelance, and all of them got paid 60 days after working. When people reference how much they make in America, they usually talk about a yearly gross income. So when somebody says that they make 100K in America, it means before paying taxes, before paying for education, before paying for healthcare, their salary for the whole year is $100,000. Now in Italy, they like to talk about a net monthly salary. So when somebody says that they pay 2,000 euros a month, that's after all of the deductions from taxes, etc. So I just think this is interesting to know and important to note that comparing $50,000 to $100,000 American salary to a 2,000 euro a month, 1,600 euro a month Italian net salary makes 0.0 cents. Italians will say, oh my gosh, Americans make so much, their salaries are so much higher. But honestly, when I think about it, when you adjust it for cost, the cost of living and what you're getting back from your benefits, I think it's really the same. Because out of that $50,000 that an average person makes in America, they still have to pay a minimum of $100 a month for health. They still have to pay taxes, which is going to be, if you're making $50,000, it's going to be around I want to say 15%. I think at the end of the day, the money that you make in America is only nominally greater, but what you're getting back from it in real value isn't that much more than what you'd make in Italy. We're going to get into a little bit of economics here, a little bit of economic lingo. What we have outside when people are looking for jobs and hiring people, it's called the labor market. And Italy and USA have two extremely different labor markets. Italy has what we call a rigid labor market, in the sense that it's very hard to hire and fire people because they have a lot of policies in place that really, on the one hand, protect the worker, but also really penalize employers. For example, employers have to pay a lot of taxes for hiring somebody. Employers also have a very hard time firing people. In Italy, you can't work if you're not under some kind of contract. And contracts usually last for at least a year. So if something goes wrong within that year, the employer has a very hard time firing the person. What this does is it makes employers very wary of hiring people, since they know that it's going to be hard to fire people, and since they know that Italian workers are very expensive. Italian employers are very like this when it comes to hiring people. So in this sense, Italian workers have more job security because they get yearly contracts that make it very hard for them to be fired, give them a lot of benefits, etc., etc. But it's a double-edged sword, because if they get fired, it's going to be very hard for them to find another job. It's very hard to find jobs in Italy because the labor market is so rigid. On the opposite end of the spectrum, in America, you have a very flexible labor system. It's very easy to hire and fire people. Employers don't have to pay even a fraction of the amount of benefits for their employees like they do in Italy. Employers also can fire you if you breathe wrong. The double-edged sword of this is, yeah, in America you don't really have so much job security. You're not likely to work for one job for your whole entire life. But if you get fired, it's not going to be a problem finding another job. In this sense, as I said before, it's better to be an employee in Italy, but it's better to be a manager or an entrepreneur in America. It's very, 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 very difficult to start a company in Italy. In America, you can start a company in a day. You submit the forms online and you are an established company in a day. And there's a lot of tax breaks, and taxes are pretty low anyways in America. So it's very easy to start a company. It's easy to pay your taxes. It's very easy. I was doing it if I was able to do it at 16, 17 years old, anybody could do it. Italy, on the opposite hand, is not like that. It's extremely hard to start a company, and they penalize companies a lot. When you pay taxes to the Italian government, you have to pay them in advance. So not only do you have to pay for this year, but you have to pay for the next year, assuming you make the same amount that you did this year. So since the taxes in Italy are so freaking high, they can get up to 40, 50, 60% of your income. If you're paying 50% of your income this year and you have to pay 50% of next year in advance, you just made €0. Does that make somebody want to start a company in Italy? No, it makes people want to work in nero. In Italy, you get a lot of benefits. You get paid vacation time. I think it's 2 weeks out of the year guaranteed, and maternity leave. I can't remember the number. I can never remember the number, but you get a lot of maternity leave. But in America, first of all, you're not guaranteed paid vacation time. I don't even know what paid vacation time is. After a certain amount of time of working for the company, maybe I'm talking like 6 months, then you can have some unpaid vacation time, but it's usually, unless you have a really good white collar contracted job, vacation time is slim pickings, and maternity leave is not very good as well. My older sister just had a baby this year, and she works as a financial officer in a bank, so a pretty ritzy job, you know. She makes a good salary, etc., etc., and even she did not get any maternity leave, 0. She had to take out vacation time and file for disability, so she had a couple of weeks off paid for the temporary disability and then some unpaid vacation time, and then she had to go back to work because even making 6 figures, she couldn't afford to not work. So I think she went back 3 months after having the baby, and that was with all that. I feel like your job in America really, really defines you, and there's so much competition and so much stress on jobs and money in America, and there's a huge divide. There's a lot of economic inequality in America that I don't really see in Italy. In Italy, it's true that you have rich and poor, but the majority of Italians are somewhere in the middle. You don't hear so much about like whole towns of Italy not having clean water to drink. In America, that is a reality. There are cities that do not have clean water to drink. There are billionaires that have islands and private jets and fly around doing God knows what in America. We have a lot of super rich people, a lot of super poor people, and then some people in between that are honestly closer to the bottom. Whereas in Italy, they don't have so many like huge billionaires. They don't have all these people starving on the streets. They're more concentrated in the center, and I feel like that's a really good thing. It's going to be very difficult for an Italian to find a job, or what is considered a good job in America, but it's also very difficult the other way around. For me, I have it a little bit easier because Italy and Europe, when you get a degree at a European university, you're allowed a certain amount of time to search for work after your visa, after you finish your studies. So when I graduate from Bocconi, I will have 1 year to search for work. That doesn't exist in America. In America, when you graduate, you get entered into a work visa lottery if you haven't already found an employer that's willing to pay, I think it's the $5,000 to hire a foreign worker. In Italy, that amount is something like €600. So it's a little bit easier, but at the same time, it's not easier because Americans usually don't tend to speak Italian, and if you don't speak Italian, you're not going to get a good job here. My perception and my goals have changed a lot since living and working in Italy. In America, it was all about getting the best job, the top paying job. I wasn't going to settle for anything less than 6 figures, and it was a very narrow vision, and all you care about is the money. All you care about is the dollar signs. Whereas in Italy, I feel like I'm much more able to care about life. I can accept a mediocre salary, I guess, so long as I can live comfortably in Italy. And as I said, it's not that expensive to live comfortably in Italy relative to America. Which one's better? I don't really know. Right now, I'm still choosing to stay in Italy. Even though it's very hard to start a company here, there are some new benefits that are coming out with like the new Partita IVA and the new like tax regimes. So it's not terrible. You just really have to play your cards correctly and set yourself up right. So this wasn't to like discourage anybody from starting anything in Italy or send everybody to go be entrepreneurs in America. It was just to show how things are right now. So yeah, those are the main differences that I found between working in Italy and working in USA, the labor market in Italy and the labor market in USA. What do you guys think? Do you